Hi, good morning, everyone. So we started with the approval process, and like we were not being able to complete that yesterday, but okay, all right. We'll try to complete this by today. So I'll go with setup and then build and then create. In the workflows and approval, you're going to find the approval process. Now, this was one of the approval process which we haven't activated because it was not being finalized properly, right? So as you can see, this is into the inactive approval process section. I'll go and I'll edit this and see. All right, so this was like something which we were doing yesterday's, and let me continue with the same thing by today itself. So I designed an approval process on the account object where I put up two conditions for the entry criteria that any such account record whose industry is banking and the active status is yes. So if this condition would satisfied, only in that condition, the record is going to be entered into the approval process, otherwise not. Now, as soon as any record, this is a default behavior of Salesforce approval process that whenever a record whenever the record gets into the approval process, it automatically the record becomes logged. That means no other than the system admin could could edit that record, right? And then apart from this, what I did yesterday was like we created one custom field inside the account object. So if you can see that one pick list field I have created, and as you can see that the field name is approval status. So there are three different values: approved, rejected, and in process. So what I did is like, as soon as the record would be going to enter into the approval process, I would perform a field update action, and we were going to, for this particular record, if for example this is the record which we have submitted for the approval, the status would going to become automatically as in process. Now this was about initial submission. And now now we're having one more condition over here. I mean, if the annual revenue is less than 50 lakh, it's going to be get submitted to user one. Whereas if the annual revenue is greater than 50 lakh, so it's going to be get to user number two. Although see, we don't have user one and user two. I obviously, I told you this yesterday itself, and today also I'm saying the same thing. We haven't gone up to that far that we will know how to create the users and all that. But in the coming days, of course, after maybe 2 or 3 topics, you're going to learn like how exactly we could create the users inside the Salesforce organization. What is the concept of licensing profiles and everything? So that is going to be a part of discussion in the coming days. But now at least, I mean, you have to make this assumption that is essential. So what I did is like, in the approval step, I designed first step that if the annual revenue is less than 50 lakh, it is going to this particular user. And let's consider this as a user number 1. Although in the second step, I'm going to design a new approval step. So I click this button. So it would be like, now let me just try to copy this and I'll paste it over here. Annual revenue, maybe like greater than, all right, greater than 50 lakh. So this is going to be considered as step number 2. So if it is like greater than 50 lakh, so what you have to do in that case, I would be select the specific criteria. I would be going to check for the annual revenue, the value of annual revenue. If it is, for example, if it is, for example, here it is less than. So it should be greater than. Actually it should be greater than and equals to 50,000. No, it's okay. It's all right. Greater than. Let me get the value as 50 lakh. All right. So this is the condition for this particular step. This is the condition. The value of the annual revenue should be greater than 50 lakh. And what should happen if this condition would satisfy? So if this condition would satisfy, so who is going to become the approvers? I'm not going to select, submitter is not going to select it manually, rather automatically assign the approval. It should be automatically assigned to a particular user. Let's consider user number 2. Actually, in both of the cases, we are selecting the same user because we don't have any, apart from this training batch user, we don't have any other system admin over here. But in real time, I'm going to show you that there are multiple users and you can particularly select, different user for this particular case. Now I would be saving for this. And do you want it to have approval action? That I'm going to decide it later. So I'm going with no, I will do this later, and then go. All right. So now see, step by step once again. So your approval process is this. Any record, whenever you submit a record of account, particularly because this approval process is being designed onto the account object, right? So it's obviously going to work for the account object only. So if you submit a record for the approval, first of all, this condition is going to be get evaluated. What is the condition? Industry should equals to banking and active status should equals to yes. If this condition would match, only in that case the record is going to be come into the approval process. Otherwise, not. Right. So one second. Now, after this entry condition has been satisfied, it would enter the record. It would enter the record for the approval, and as soon as the record is being entered into the approval, it becomes locked. You cannot modify that record. You cannot edit that record. And also one more thing was going to be happen. There is a field inside account called as approval status, which is actually a pick list field, which is having 3 different values that is going to be get updated. And for that particular record, you're going to see that it would become in process. After that, now this was about initial submission. Now for the user, I mean, we are having 2 options over here. Although we selected same user, I just wanted to simulate that, right? And I wanted you to make an assumption that let's consider there are 2 different set of user. So what would happen, based on the annual revenue of that particular record which we have submitted for the approval, if the annual revenues value, if it is, for example, less than 50 lakh, user 1 would get the chance to either approve or either reject that. And if it's less, if it is greater than 50 lakh, so in that case, user 2 would become responsible to approve or reject that record. So that is what an approval step. Now there's 2 sections: final approval and final rejection. And let's consider whether it's a user 1 or user 2, whoever is the approver. So whoever is the approver, if somebody would approve the record, what should happen? If somebody would reject the record, then what should happen? So I wanted that, I created this field. I have 3 options inside: approved, reject. Well, let's consider this record was being submitted. So right now, the status is in process. But let's say the approver, if approver would approve this record, the status should become approved. Or maybe if you reject this, the status should automatically become rejected. So how exactly we are going to do that? So we are, this is going to be simulated into final approval and final rejection. Now, see, once this has been completed, I would show you one real-time example for this, like how I have designed few more things into this. I'm going to show you that. All right. Anyways, so when the final approval would occur, if this record was being submitted for approval, and let's say जो approver था उसने इसे approve कर दिया है. So what should happen in that case? So I wanted to add an action. So whenever you wanted to add an action, this is what the button is: add name. And these are the 4 actions. These are the only 4 actions I could say, which you could add on to a approval process as in response of, as in response of the action in the approval process you could add. And they are same, they are same as your workflows. See, workflow also have the same 4 operations, right? In the workflow, you can see, you have seen this, the same you are seeing right now in the approval process as well. So what I wanted to do, if final approval, if the user, maybe 1 or 2, whatever, if he approves the record, so I wanted to perform a field update action. So that is the reason, I'm selecting field update. And in the name, I would say update approval status. approval status as approved. All right, as approved. Approved, yes. So this is the name. All right, this is just the name. Now which field I wanted to update? I wanted to update a field called approval status. All right, in the custom field section, I'm going to see the name approval status. Now that's a pick list field. Which value you wanted? I wanted a specific value, approved. So this should become whenever the record was being approved. So I'm selecting this and I'm saving this. Now this was about final approval. This was about final approval. All right. Now when somebody rejects this record, so what should happen? So I'll go with final rejection. There also I'll add the action. See, in the final approval also, you can see the record is locked, right? The record is locked. As you can see, lock the record, unless it has been approved. Now, after rejection, what is the automatic process? You can unlock the record. You can unlock the record. If you wanted to edit this, yes, over here, if you wanted, like, even though the record was being rejected, you wanted to keep it onto the lock. So you can do that. You can see lock the record, unlock the record. In a default case, the record is automatically going to get unlocked. But if you wanted to change this behavior, yes, you have. Over here, when the approval process, when somebody would approve, even over there, if you wanted, there is also a choice. You can lock, you can unlock. But particularly whenever the record is submitted when an initial submission, there is no editing option. You can edit this in the final approval, in the final rejection. But whenever the record is getting submitted, we don't have any option over here where, I could unlock the record. That record would be locked and it would be in a locked state. Let's see. So what I wanted in the final rejection, there's already one action, record is getting unlocked. Apart from this, I wanted to add one field update action. And I would say that update approval status as rejected. Which field I wanted to update? Inside the account, there's a field called approval status. And I wanted this to become rejected. So this is what, right? So now I could say that everything has been in a proper way, like we want it. It's like, so in the approval, it would becomes approved. In the rejection, it would become rejected. Now everything is in line, in a proper place. Let me activate this. All right. So there's a button. You can see this is not right now. It's not in an active state. You have to manually activate this. See the approval process, right? So how? There's a button, activate. Let me activate this. Now your approval process is in the active state. All right. Now time is to test it. So I would be going to a record and let me try to create a new record over here. Test approval process, R1, record number 1. What are the mandatory conditions? There are 2 mandatory conditions. The annual, no. What are the mandatory conditions? Industry should equals to banking. So this record would go to the approval where the industry would become, if the industry is banking and the active status is yes. These are the 2 mandatory conditions. Apart from that, if the value of annual revenue, if it is greater than like 50 lakh, it should go to user 1, then user 2. In our case, both of them are same, so abhi chahe wo kam rahe zyada rahe, it will obviously going to be, in this case, what is happening is like you are creating this record and you would be the one who would going to approve this. But real time mein aisa thodi na hota hai. You create the record, somebody else would going to update that. But anyway, abhi aisa nahi rahega. So I'll make it like 60 lakh, once, 10, 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh, 60 lakh. And the rating is hot. Let me select some other values. Phone, fax, website, ownership is private. Type is customer direct, industry should banking, approval status. See, I haven't selected anything over here. All right. I'm keeping it as it is because I wanted this everything to be get done from the approval process only. Customer priority, SLA, upsell opportunity and everything. Now, when everything has been set up and the mandatory conditions is like, industry should be banking, that is there. Active status should be yes. Let me now save this record. One duplicate alert, saving this. Now, this is the record. which have all those conditions where the industry value of industry's banking active status is yes. Now let me submit this record for approval. Now there are two ways to do that. See, one is the manual submission. Every time if you wanted to submit a record, all right, manually, you have to go with the approval history and submit. This we can automate. This we can automate. Any such record, if you wanted with certain conditions, if the records like industry is this one and whatever, you can also automate this process. But right now I'm keeping this manually. I'll also going to show you how manually, how automatically we could, we could design this. Otherwise, otherwise, manually how to do this. So you have to go with the related list section, jahan pe approval history aapko lani padegi, and then submit this for the approval. See, as soon as I'll submit this record for approval, first of all, this condition would be evaluated. If abhi to maine kuch nahi kiya hai na, I haven't submitted that, but as soon as I'll submit this record for the approval, अभी also आप देख रहे हो कि ये सारा blank है यहाँ पे ना, this everything has been blanked. ठीक है, दो जगह से हमको पता चलेगा. एक तो रिकॉर्ड लेवल पे यहाँ जाके अप्रूवल हिस्ट्री पे देखना पड़ता है, और एक और प्लेस है, लेट मी ब्रिंग यू टू ओवर देयर. इफ यू गो टू द होम, सो यहाँ पे दिख रहा है आपको आइटम्स टू अप्रूव, यहाँ पर भी वो रिकॉर्ड आ जाएगा. ठीक है, दो जगह आपको नजर आता है कौन सा पर्टिकुलर रिकॉर्ड जो है वो अप्रूवल के लिए क्या हुआ है. एक तो होता है रिकॉर्ड लेवल पे, इफ यू ओपन दैट रिकॉर्ड, वहां पे नजर आता है इन द अप्रूवल हिस्ट्री, एंड इन द होम टैब there's a place called items to approve. यहाँ पे भी आएगा वो रिकॉर्ड. Anyways, so let me first of all send this record for the approval. Now, when I'm going to submit this, first would be like this condition is going to be evaluated. For this particular record, if the industry is banking, and if the active status is yes, if this condition would match, then only it would enter into initial submission, otherwise not. All right, because this both conditions are matching, so it would enter, obviously. So I'm submitting this for the approval process. Once you submit this record for approval, you might not be able to edit it or recall it from the approval process, depending on your setting. That is what I was trying to say. Your record becomes logged, and you lose this ability. You lose this ability to edit that. All right, let's see that. I'm submitting this record. I'm submitting this record for the approval. Now see, if I try to edit this, there's a button unlock record. My goodness. There's a button unlock record, but that would appear only for the admins. This button, if you're not an admin, for example, you are not having the system admin profile, you're having some other user. All right. So if you are not a system admin, you are some other user, this would not occur. All right. See what happens if I try to edit this. Oh, it's appearing. Why it's appearing? Because I'm a system admin, right? So, but in another cases, this record would become logged. All right. So inline editing is not possible, as I can see. And let me try to edit up to a certain level, and let me try to see whether I could save this record or not. I can save. I can save because I am a system admin. So for the system admin, this facility is enabled. But otherwise, for another users, they cannot edit that. All right. So now this record has been sent. अभी आपको थोड़ा सा assume करना पड़ेगा. Let's consider अभी हमने this record has been sent for the approval. ठीक है. अभी हम एक साइड पिक्चर का आधा हिस्सा हो चुका है. अभी हम सेकेंड हाफ की बात करते हैं. नाउ लेट्स कंसीडर वी आर दैट यूजर. अभी हम वो नहीं है जिसने सबमिट किया है, हम वो हैं जिसको अप्रूव करना है इस रिकॉर्ड को. वी आर दैट यूजर हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू अप्रूव दैट. यूजर 1 और यूजर 2 में से हम कुछ एक हैं. ठीक है, हम वो नहीं है जिसने रिकॉर्ड को सबमिट किया है, वो दूसरा कोई था, and we are that user whose responsibility is to approve this. तो there are two possibilities. See, एक तो ये रिकॉर्ड जब आप ओपन करते हो तो अप्रूवल हिस्ट्री में यहाँ पे आ रहा है, ठीक है, यहाँ पर आ रहा है, तो what you wanted to do, ठीक है, what you wanted to do, तो आप उसको करना चाहते नहीं. At the same time, you know, it would appears over here as well, items to approve, and why it is coming like approved, why it is coming like approved, यहाँ पे approved क्यों आ रहा है? I have not approved that, शायद मैंने कुछ किया. एक मिनट, मैं एक रिकॉर्ड और बनाता हूँ. Maybe I did something wrong. Approval test, record number 2. Industry should be banking. Annual revenue, I'm selecting this value. Approval status, I'm not selecting anything. Importantly, active status should be yes. So with all these basic details, you know, let me now save this record. So approval status अभी blank है, जो कि बिल्कुल सही है. And let me now submit this for the approval. I'm submitting this record for the approval. Now, as soon as it's why it is becoming approved. Why it is becoming approved? It shouldn't be automatically approved. क्यों हो रहा है? Record is getting locked. Field update action. Initial submission, approval steps. Chetna, could you please off your video camera? Final approval. Record is locked. Record is locked. Unlock that field update. It is becoming approved automatically. Once again, submit this for approval. This I need to check here. I mean, as soon as I submit it, it becomes approved. ऐसा नहीं होता है ये. All right, just give me a moment. Let me try to log in into कोई दूसरा अकाउंट पे लॉग इन करता हूँ मैं दूसरे यूजर के साथ. Just give me a moment. Try with this. Just give me a moment. Let me try to log in into some other account where, you know, we have multiple users. Yeah, that's good. That's right. All right. Okay, so मैं 204 पे login किया है. Let me revise the same process because यहाँ पे ना we do have users. But 204, that's an old batch. So here you can see that we are having multiple users over here. So one is system admin, the another one as a development user. Oh, development user is not active. Let me activate him first of all. Let me deactivate this user. That's good. License is Salesforce. Profile is a profile, it doesn't matter. Anyways, all right. So see, मैं 204 से ये example replicate करता हूँ. Let me once again do the same thing. Create and workflows and approval. I'll go with approval process. And this I'm designing for the account. Create a new by using standard setup wizard. I would be giving the name as, account annual revenue approval process. And next, criteria is like the industry. The account industry should equals to banking. That is the first criteria. And the second is the active status should be yes. The active status should equals to yes. So these are the two conditions for the entry criteria. And let me go with the next. There's nothing has to be done over here, no templates. And the next, account owner, I also wanted to see the annual run, these two status. And next, and apart from the owner, do you want it to add initial submitter would be the owners only? That is perfect. That is perfect. Yes, over here I committed a mistake. Yes, I remember. यहाँ पे मैंने I have added training batch user. Got it. उस वजह से ऐसा हो रहा है. You go back to this yesterday's lecture और यहाँ जब ये वाला point आएगा जो कल का लेक्चर है वहां पे तुम देखना कि मैंने ओनर्स के अलावा इनिशियल सबमिटर्स में I have added training batch user. That is the reason that is all happening with. So I'm not going to commit the same mistake over here. वैसे भी यहाँ दो users हैं हमारे पास में तो it would be better. I would be going to replicate it over here. So it would be like, annual revenue above 50 lakh, something like this. I would be giving this as a step number 1. So if, if the condition, like if the annual revenue, any such where the annual revenue value, if it is greater than, let's say if it is greater or equals to 50 lakh. So once, tens, 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh. So any such account record where the value is greater than 50 lakh, I'm just replicating one condition over here. That goes to a user. Which user? We are having multiple users. You can see both of them. So I'm selecting a development user, not the admin, a separate user for this. This is real time. This is how we do this in real time, right? So any such record of account where the value of annual revenue is greater than 50 lakh, that should goes to development user. Now save it. And all right, I don't have that field, है ना? So मैं एक field भी create कर लेता हूँ inside the account. Let me create a field for there as well. So in the account object, let me try to check, do we have a field over there? Approval status, we already have it. So submitted, approved, and reject. Very good. So we have a field over here called approval status. So I'm going to do would be like, now if in the initial submission, I'm adding a field update action as we did it. So it would be like update approval status as update approval status to to submitted. And which field I wanted to update? I wanted to update a field called approval status. What would be the value? The value which I want is submitted. Okay, let me now save this. And that is my initial submission. And approval steps would be this: annual revenue greater than 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, lakh, and 10 lakh. And then final in the final approval, I also wanted to have one field update action. Update approval status as approved. Which field I wanted to update? I wanted to update a field called approval status, right? Which value I wanted this to be get approved. And then in this was final approval. And let me go to the final rejection. In the final rejection also, update approval status as rejected. And then the field I wanted to approve is approval status, the value with rejected. I save this. मैंने कहाँ पे मिस्टेक किया? स्टेटस इज अच्छा वो ऑलरेडी है, कोई बात नहीं कोई बात नहीं कोई बात नहीं. Update as rejected, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. And then customer not customer priority approval status as rejected, and let me now save this. Chalo. So now this everything has been set up. We have initial conditions, entry criteria, final approvals, final rejection, everything, and now I'm activating this. I'm now activating this. All right. Chalo. Ye ho gaya. Let me now try to create a record. A new record inside account where account for approval process testing record number 1. Mandatory conditions are industry should equals to banking and the active status should equals to yes. And let's take the annual revenue value also. So it should be greater than 50 lakh. So I'm taking 60 lakh, ones, tens, 100, 1000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh, maybe crore. Chalo. So this is one of the record where these three conditions are matching. So now I'm saving this. Validations लगा रखे हैं मैंने, तो फिर वेबसाइट के भी होंगे. Let me try to save this. ये validation rule fire हुआ और कुछ नहीं. All right. So now see, this is one of the account record where industry is banking, annual revenue is obviously greater than 50 lakh, and active status is yes. All right. Now I'll submit this. I'll submit this record for the approval. Okay. So in the approval history, in the approval history, you have this button. Now let's submit this record for the approval. All right. Let's submit this record for the approval. Now, when you submit it for the approval, see, now this appears like this. This appears like this. I mean, in the approval history, you're going to see two sections. Let me try to describe you clearly. Concentrate over here. In the first block over here, it would mention who has submitted the record for approval. Who has submitted the record? Who submitted this? Batch 204. I mean, that's the name of admin, obviously. Real time पे यहाँ पे जैसे I'll submit it, मेरा नाम आएगा यहाँ पे. My username would appear over here. यहाँ पे हमने you know this कि मैं जो user create करता हूँ उसको batches के नाम से करता हूँ. So batch 204 is that user who submitted the record for approval. When he submitted the timestamp, what is the status? Submitted. He submitted the record. Okay. Now, this is the first thing. Now, in the above, uska information aata hai ki who is the approvers, who is going to approve this record, to whom this record was being submitted. So this record was being submitted to the user development. There's another user. What is the status? Pending. All right. What is the overall status? Abhi tak kya hai? Pending hai, because this user have not taken any action. All right. And now you can see the status becomes submitted. Status kya hai iska? Submitted hai. ठीक है. अब ये जो यूजर है, ये यूजर डिसाइड करेगा कि ये अप्रूव करना कि रिजेक्ट करना. अकॉर्डिंगली अगर वो अप्रूव करेगा तो दिस इज गोइंग टू बिकम अप्रूव्ड. अगर वो रिजेक्ट करता है तो दिस बिकम्स रिजेक्टेड. नाउ द सेम थिंग यू कैन सी, same thing you can see over in the home as well. So when you go to the home tab, in the items to approved, you can see that one item is waiting for the approval, which is related to development user. I mean, this has been given to development user. Which type of record? Account record. When it was being submitted. Okay. But you are getting this option because you are admin. Otherwise, ये options नहीं आते हैं आपको. ये वाले options नहीं आते हैं. Chalo, anyway. Now, नाउ अभी ये रिकॉर्ड जो है, दिस रिकॉर्ड हैज बीन सबमिटेड फॉर द अप्रूवल, और इसका स्टेटस वी कैन सी इज पेंडिंग। यूजर डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर है कि वो इसे क्या करता। सो व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू डू वुड बी लाइक, लेट मी मेक अ लॉगिन टू द डेवलपमेंट यूजर। अब ये सब कैसे करते हैं ये सब मैं सिखाने वाला हूँ आपको, सो डोंट वरी अबाउट दैट। सो व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू डू वुड बी लाइक, आई मेक अ लॉगिन इनटू द डेवलपमेंट यूजर्स अकाउंट। तो डेवलपमेंट यूजर्स जो यूजर है इसके अकाउंट में मैं लॉगिन करता हूँ, और वहां से जैसे अप्रूव या रिजेक्ट जो भी करना है। सो आई विल गो विथ सेटअप मेन्यू and I'll go with manage users. This you are going to learn, don't worry. So the development user से मैं login कर रहा हूँ। Now let's consider, अभी हम दूसरी साइड आ चुके हैं, ठीक है। अभी ये साइड आप छोड़ दो, अभी यहाँ से रिकॉर्ड जा चुका है। अब आपको यू हैव टू फील लाइक अ डेवलपमेंट यूजर, ठीक है। यूजर डेवलपमेंट, अभी आप कौन हो? यू आर दैट यूजर हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल ईदर टू अप्रूव और रिजेक्ट, ठीक है। वो भी अगर देखे आइटम्स टू अप्रूव, देखो जब वो अपने होम पर आता है तो ही इज ऑल्सो सी दिस रिकॉर्ड, उसको यहाँ पर भी दिखता है, ठीक है। यहां से भी वो चाहे तो अप्रूव और रिजेक्ट कर सकता है होम टैब पे। अदरवाइज अगर वो अकाउंट में जाता है, ठीक है, अकाउंट में जाता है, इफ यू ओपन दैट रिकॉर्ड तो उसको वहां से भी नजर आता है। तो व्हाट वाज दैट रिकॉर्ड? शेयरिंग रूल लगा रखा है मैंने शायद यहाँ पे। क्या रिकॉर्ड है ये? अकाउंट फॉर अप्रूवल प्रोसेस, ऑल अकाउंट्स अकाउंट फॉर अप्रूवल, शेयरिंग रूल है, ठीक है। कोई बात नहीं, हमको होम पे तो दिख ही रहा है ना, होम पे तो दिख रहा है। चलो यहां से अभी व्हाट वी आर डेवलपमेंट यूजर, वो सेकंड वाला यूजर जिसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है अप्रूव करना या रिजेक्ट करना, ठीक है। तो अभी लेट मी अप्रूव दिस। व्हाट सी इफ आई अप्रूव दिस रिकॉर्ड, शेयरिंग रूल, दिस ऑल इज हैपनिंग बिकॉज ऑफ द शेयरिंग रूल यार। हाँ बराबर है, ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है। डोंट वरी, आई हैव सो मेनी ऑप्शंस, मेरे पास बहुत सारे तरीके हैं। From here itself I'm going to show you that. Don't worry, I'll have everything. ठीक है चलो। So although now let's consider we are a development user, right? We are a development user. Let me now approve this record. ठीक है, you wanted to add any comment? I am approving this record since it seems okay to me. ठीक है, you can add the conditions and then approve. चलो, so you have approved this record अप्रूव कर दिया है। so now if I go to the approval history, आप देखो यहाँ पे चेंज हो गया, पहले it was pending, now it becomes approved, and one more thing was happening, approval status क्या हो चुका है? approved। सेम प्रोसेस अगर आप रिजेक्ट के लिए ट्राई करोगे, ठीक है, तो यहाँ लिख के आएगा रिजेक्टेड और ये रेड मार्क रहेगा, और यहाँ पे अप्रूवल स्टेटस जो है वो रिजेक्टेड हो जाएगा, ठीक है। so this is what is an approval process. This is what is an approval process is, and then this is how it actually works for the multiple users. Now let me try to show you, some of the real-time examples for this. So 1 second. So this is how the approval process, actually it works. इस तरह से काम करता है रियल टाइम पे भी, और जैसा आपको मैंने बताया उसी तरह से। All right. So next would be like, after this, I'm going to start with analytics and go with this all examples जो भी आज किया है हमने, and analytics जो है, that would be the next topic. Probably by tomorrow morning I'm going to start it. Okay, so let me give you this command. Yes, any questions? Any questions?
हेलो, गुड मॉर्निंग सर।
गुड मॉर्निंग
सर, वो असाइनमेंट में क्या प्रोसेस वर्कफ्लो रूल ऑन हायरिंग मैनेजर टू सेंड द ईमेल नोटिफिकेशन टू द हायरिंग मैनेजर आफ्टर 50 मिनट्स, प्लीज एक्सप्लेन सर।
ये वाला I told you that you have to create a formula fill this. Yesterday itself I told you when if you try to solve this, you first of all would require to create a formula. इस पर रिसर्च करिए आप लोग।
दिया था सो, लेकिन नहीं आ रहा है।
नहीं करो और करो, कल ही तो दिया है, कल या परसों में तो दिया असाइनमेंट, इतनी जल्दी थोड़ा ना होगा। इस वीकेंड तक अगर आप लोगों ने नहीं किया तो फिर मैं सोचूंगा क्या करना, बट अदरवाइज आप रिसर्च करो इसके ऊपर में। मेरे पास सोल्यूशन रेडी है उसका, बट इतनी जल्दी नहीं मिलेगा आप लोगों को। All right. Thank you so much for joining.